Welcome to the Black Heart Red Spade podcast. This podcast features long-form conversations with accomplished guests from across the globe on topics ranging from financial markets and trading to psychology, entrepreneurship, and life in general, with your host, Adrian Alberts.
My guest today is Jon Rhodes, who is the founder of HypnoBusters. I've known Jon via LinkedIn for quite a few years now because I was actually one of his clients from a few years ago. And Jon has been an expert on the topic of narcissism for quite a few years now, and I've enjoyed reading his posts, and it actually prompted me to contact him and ask if he would come on the podcast, which I very much thank you for, Jon, because I feel that narcissism is a topic that most people don't know anything about, and if they do have an inkling of what they think it is, they often misconstrue it for being more vanity oriented than all the other damaging aspects. So Jon, I just want to say thanks a lot for being on the show, and could you give everyone just a brief background of how you got into this and what your other professional background credentials are?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Thanks for inviting me on the podcast, by the way. This is the first podcast I've actually ever done, so it's
Wow,
new
okay.
experience
Well,
for me. And I'm learning about Zoom, which I've been meaning to learn about, to be honest, and get into this sort of thing. So it's great that you've given me this opportunity to
never too late for
finally
that.
take the plunge. Yeah. So yeah, with the narcissism, I can tell you exactly how I got into it. Actually, my dad died a few years, like 2008, and a few years after, he had quite a few strange behaviours. And I was talking to my brother. And I said to my brother, I said, what was it? He used to, like, when we used to go around town, he used to walk like 20 yards ahead of us, rushing around, and we could never get to see anything. And there was a few odd things like that. I said to my brother, what was all that about? He went, well, he was a narcissist. What do you mean? He's a narcissist. He said it quite matter of factly. And I'm like, so I went on Quora, started reading about it, and I was newly divorced at the time as well. And I'm like, bloody hell, yeah, he was a narcissist. Oh, and then I started thinking, oh my word, hang on, my ex, she did this, she did that. This friend that I've had for years, they do this, they do that. And it just started connecting all the dots. And I started realizing, wow, how many narcissists I've actually had in my life. And I've actually been quite a magnet to them. But on top of that, I also worked in mental health for 14 years. I only stopped about a year and a half ago. And I worked with people with sort of schizophrenia, personality disorders, and quite serious things like that. But I never kind of twigged the connection with the clients and the people that were in my life had the same sort of condition.
Yeah.
I think because the relationship's different, plus they were lower functioning generally, the ones that I was looking after in my work. So there was a bit more issues. They were a bit more obvious with their issues, not quite as difficult to sort of uncover. So it's quite strange that I've kind of been hit from all angles until eventually I saw the light and kind of realized about it. And I thought, well, it's fooled me for years. It's going to be fooling a lot more other people.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
I'm going to try and get that information out and help as many people as I can. Been kind of my mission.
I actually consider this podcast that we're doing as a form of a public service. It might sound like a bit of a vain comment to make, but I really do consider it as such because I've also been fooled by narcissists a few times. I knew quite a few while growing up too, and I didn't know it at the time, but it's only as an adult and having done a bit more research into this field, and I'm by no means an expert, don't want to call myself one, but given the fact that I work as a performance coach and these things, I have to know a bit about how
it's very useful to know for all that.
it's
Because
incredibly useful
very
to know
useful.
for that.
But
But
that will give you an extra kind of thing that you can give on it that not other people can.
yeah, absolutely. But I didn't realize how damaging narcissists actually are until I saw a lot of the effects firsthand as an adult, because they are so incredibly good at disguising their what I will call malignant behaviors.
Yeah, people project their own empathy onto the narcissist. That's the problem. So things like if the narcissist says, "Oh, you're looking fat in that skirt," they might get upset, but then they'll think, oh, they were doing it for my own good to help me lose weight, and that's their way of doing it. It's like, no, they were just putting you down, and so that's the big problem. We do it. We almost gaslight ourselves by we assume, oh, they love me, but they have a funny way of showing it. It's just their way and
Mm-mm.
things like that.
No.
And it's like, no, actually, they don't love you. It is more black and white than that, but we try and uncover the layers and make sense of their behaviors, and by making sense, we often give them carte blanche to get away with it.
It's so funny you say that, because I've noticed how narcissistic apologies tend to be so disingenuous. So, for example, if you call them out on the example that you just used here, and they say, well, I was just joking. Can't you take a joke? Or why are you so sensitive? Well, that's not an apology, mate. That's
That's one of the most common things you
yeah.
hear is the insult, and then I was only joking. What's the matter with you?
Mhm.
That's one of the most common gaslighting things you'll hear. And I had a boss at work that was doing that, and it was like I knew that tactic at that point. So it was just like, I know what you're up to. Nobody else could see it, but once you learn these things, you can't unsee it, can you? And
Why do you think narcissism is so prevalent in society? I mean, I've heard of the theory, of course, that narcissistic parents can often create narcissistic children. So in other words, it's and please correct me if my thinking is a little bit off here, but it seems to be a personality disorder that can also be infectious, depending on the environment that you grew up in. So you'll often find that narcissistic parents have narcissistic kids because they neglect.
definitely runs in families. Yeah, yeah.
It's not like
Whether
psychopathy.
it's nature or nurture, nobody really knows for definite. I suspect it's probably a bit of both, nature and nurture. But I've seen many families that are absolutely ram full of them. Yeah. So it's. So what was the question? Sorry, I've.
No, no, the question was, what do you think has led to this prevalence of
Oh,
narcissism? And do you think that it's actually increasing in the world that we currently live in, with social media and all the other tools that we have available to make ourselves more publicly available to everyone else?
I often wonder what the evolutionary advantage of having narcissists in society is, as to whether it's a natural phenomenon or not. And I suppose, in a strange way, they do serve some sort of functions. If you look at sort of like the army, for example, I've heard figures of like up to 20% of people in the army are narcissists or even psychopaths. And I mean, especially more so with a psychopath. But
Psychopaths,
if a
I get.
psychopath
Yeah.
if a psychopath shoots someone, for example, they won't get PTSD
Exactly.
like you or I would. They'll they'll enjoy it. They'll enjoy it. They'll say, "Oh, I killed 4 people. Oh yeah, I'm powerful. I'm great." And they'll go on and they can work the next day, work the next day. Whereas I shoot 4 people, and that's probably me done in my career. You know. So I think there is some kind of evolutionary. So they've always been about, I suspect. Whether there's more or not, I think it's more of a case of they're getting more seen now. Things like
Ah,
social
okay.
media seem to be kind of showing them up a little bit, because you get all the people going on virtue signaling, and like
How interesting. I never
Spade.
thought of it that way, that it's showing them up as opposed to being a platform for them to show off. Huh. So it can actually backfire a bit on them too.
I think so. Yeah, I think you, because there's all this thing now, isn't there, of the narcissism of taking self. I mean, everybody still does it, but nobody used to take a photograph of himself at one time, and now it's just the dumb thing.
Yeah.
Um, so they are hiding in that respect, that more and more people are sort of displaying more narcissistic behaviors, but also there's kind of it's kind of like you see them more, like they're the ones always posting, like, look at me, I've gone to this restaurant, look at this, I'm eating a burger, look at this tea I've made tonight. Whereas you wouldn't have seen that at one time, you know what I mean, before social media.
No, 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 no,
Um,
definitely not. And I'm, I want to add this to, is that we all have narcissistic traits. but
Yeah.
that doesn't mean that you are narcissistic in terms of personality disorder and all that stuff. I seem to recall that you need at least 6 traits before you're considered or rather before you can be diagnosed as a narcissist, as someone with NPD.
Yeah.
Contrary to psychopathy, where in the UK, apparently, you need to have 28 traits on the Hare psychopathy list and have committed a crime to be considered a psychopath. And in
All
the
right, I didn't
US,
know
it's
that.
30 traits before you're considered a psychopath. So we all have
Right.
psychopathic traits, we all have narcissistic traits and all that stuff. And I think the biggest evolutionary cause for that is survival. If you don't look out for
Yeah.
number 1, you will die. So
Yeah.
essentially there is that. But the one problem that I have picked up with those things is that psychopaths, as Chris Williams said in one of his podcasts, are useful when society starts breaking down. Like, for example, when you needed the guys to go out and fight the battles and raid the villages and so on and so forth, and not come back with PTSD, as you mentioned earlier, that's when they were useful. But psychopaths are not useful in a general working society. That's where they actually do a lot of damage. And there was a scary statistic that I read about psychopaths a few years ago that experts estimated that they make up 1 to maybe 2% of the population because, well, how do you know exactly? Not exactly as if you can do a survey and say, "Hi, are you a psychopath?" No one will answer that.
There's so many that are undiagnosed as well. There's
Yeah,
so many.
too many.
Yeah.
But let's say we work with that 1 to 2%, and most of them are male because males have more of a proclivity towards psychopathy than females. But they estimate that psychopaths commit roughly 50% of all crimes, John.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Which is why I can't fathom why there's not a lot more research done on it, because the vast majority of the problems caused in the world are caused by psychopaths and narcissists. There's no doubt about it, is there, when you look at the statistics. And why people aren't screened before going into the police and roles like that, I will never know. I can only imagine that there's psychopaths in high places that are preventing this from happening. I can't understand any other reason.
The interesting thing that I've also found about psychopaths and narcissists is that all psychopaths are narcissists, but obviously not all narcissists are psychopaths. And you'll often find that with psychopaths that they are more grandiose narcissists or often malignant ones. Whereas many narcissists, as you said before we started recording, are also covert ones or vulnerable ones, as that they are sometimes known as. Can you tell us a bit more about the different categories and what people should look out for, warning signs, red flags, any of these things that pop up?
Well, the COVID narcissists, they're the ones to watch out for the most, because they're the ones that hide the best. But their goals are exactly the same as the more overt narcissists. They want to exploit you. They want a one-way relationship where they take from you and you give to them. But they have a different way of doing it. An overt narcissist might bully you, might cajole you, pester you, whereas an overt narcissist is more likely to just say, "Oh, don't worry about me. It doesn't matter. Like, poor old me." And they play the victim, and people rally round to help them and help them. And then once somebody's helped them once, they start getting used to it. I've seen overt narcissists get people cleaning their homes from top to bottom, and all because they're just like, "Oh, I'm depressed. I can't cope. My house is a mess. Oh, it's okay. We'll come and clean your house." Then they come and clean the house, and they're like, "Oh, thank you very much." Then the house slowly becomes a tip again after a couple more
It's
months,
all an
and
act.
then what's that say?
It's all an act.
All an act, yeah, yeah.
Wow.
And they do that in many ways, like play the victim and that. Oh, I haven't got much money. Oh, it's okay. I'll pay for that. Oh, are you sure? And that's exactly what. And you have all the fake thing. Oh, are you sure? You don't have to.
I'm
And that's
actually
exactly
picturing
what they
that.
want.
I've actually seen all these things that you've
Yeah.
just mentioned. It's wow.
And then what they try and do is they try and latch onto somebody who's naturally a caring, giving person.
Empathy.
And then a naturally caring, giving person is not going to see a friend without money, with an untidy house, or without this or without that. So they end up, once they found the right sort of person, they'll latch onto that, and then they'll get as much as they can out of them. and then they'll try and find another one and another one, and some of them end up with whole teams of people
Sounds very
around them.
parasitic.
Yeah, very parasitic. And so they'll have one that's good for lending them money, another one that will give them lifts in the car, another one that will clean the house, another one that will do the, and they find, and they'll kind of put them in little kind of categories of that you're useful for that, you're useful for that, and you're useful for that. And and they can get by without doing very little in their life, and sort of having everybody doing everything for them.
Wow. It's
And
actually
and
quite
because they're
shocking.
covert, they can get away with it for years and years and years with people who have no idea.
What kind of people do they normally target, as in personality traits or types and so on? Is there a general type that they? I mean, I know of the whole empath narcissist link. So narcissists love any form
It's
of empath.
a, a funny one that they sometimes, I mean, typically they'll go for people with weaker boundaries or people that are caring, that want to give, and this, that, and the other. But another kind of interesting one is that narcissists sometimes target borderlines as well. I don't know if you've heard about that one.
No, tell me more about that, please.
You do sometimes get, I mean, a borderline is quite similar to a narcissist.
Yeah, tell us more.
It's,
Please tell us what a borderline personality disorder is for those who don't know about it.
well, it's in the same category cluster B as narcissistic personality. Um, but the borderline tends to be more emotional. That's the main difference. Whereas a narcissist can sort of hide their emotions, and a borderline kind of just lets them all spill out. So you typically get the female diagnosed with borderline and the male diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder.
Okay.
And people can that suffer from one and the other can sort of switch between to some degree as well, depending on what's going on in their life. They can become a bit more borderline, like a bit more emotional, or the borderline can become a little bit less emotional at times in their
Sounds
life.
exhausting.
But what happens is you get the narcissist that has low emotional, they've walled their emotions away. So they control the relationship. The borderlines very clingy, wanting the relationship. So the narcissist has all the power because the narcissist is like, I can walk away whenever I want. I can threaten to leave you and I'll win every single argument. So the borderline kind of backs down because they usually have a lot of fears of abandonment. Um, so they just don't want the relationship to end. So the narcissist just uses that and just completely controls them.
Jeez,
So that's
it
quite a
sounds like
scary
such a thick
dynamic,
game,
yeah.
really. It sounds like such a
So
sick.
you might see, I mean, I sometimes get it where I get emails from people talking about their abusive partner, and I can kind of tell they're a borderline because they're kind of like, but I can't leave him, uh, and I can't say you can't tell them, well, just leave them because they're like, no, and they just keep going back to him and back to him and back to him, and you can't really tell them. It's quite sad, really.
It's actually difficult to get out of abusive relationships. People, and I'm sure you would have also had people in your life tell you, why don't you just leave her if she's abusive, or why not just? But as a good friend of mine once said, any solution with the word just in it is hardly ever
Mm,
a solution, because
right.
because if it was that simple to do something, then
Mm.
how come you are the only person to see this incredibly obvious solution to a very complex problem? And it's just, no pun intended, not that simple.
No. Well, one of the big things that a narcissist does is they find because they're very good at they test people all the time. They find where your line is.
Oh,
They
yeah.
know exactly the amount of abuse you'll take. And they test you over weeks, months, years, and then once they find their line, they will treat you just a nick under it so that they're as abusive as they can get away with without actually quite pushing you away. It's just that, so you kind of things feel wrong and you feel disrespected, but they kind of don't do anything that's really, really bad. I mean, I had a 12-year relationship, and it took for her to cheat on me, and that was my line smashed then, and it was
Oh,
like
she overreached.
that was like yeah, that was like she was expecting I would take her back, and I'm like, to me, that's
Mm.
not excusable. And it's like, but for years that like she spent all the money. Anything we disagreed with, she would never back down. She'd never do anything for me. I was running around doing all the housework and everything. Um, but I wouldn't divorce somebody over housework. You
No,
know,
no.
maybe that's wrong, but you kind of think, well, I'm not going to. As much as it annoys you, it's like it's kind of not a game changer. So, but then there's all these little things that on their own they might not be too bad,
They
but there's
compound.
all these lots of things, isn't there, that build up and the pressure that builds up. But you kind of think, well, I'm not going to leave you because you're messy.
No,
um,
no, no, no.
so
I,
in a weird way, the affair was a blessing because it was like it finally gave me a good reason to go, right, that is definitely it. Which is quite sad, really. But
isn't it amazing how after a while, narcs do tend to overplay their hands? As you said, that
yeah,
they play just under that line,
they get greedy.
and
They want that little
boom.
bit more, and then eventually they get greedy. And, they just want. They just basically want to draw as much out of you as they can for as long as they can. That's kind of that's the goal. So,
In
but
all your
yeah,
experience with narcissists, how many of them are actually what you would call confident people? Because I've struggled to see how many of
deep
them are
down,
confident people.
then I mean, anybody that needs to bully someone to make themselves feel better can't be that comfortable in their own
What I
skin. I
thought.
don't believe. So, I mean, there's conflicting studies. I've read some studies that say no, they are confident, and then some say no, they're not. And I err on the side that they're not. To be honest, deep down, there's that front and that bravado, and they can tell you how great they are at their job, and they tell you how confident they are. They'll say, "I am," but somebody who's confident wouldn't go around telling people how confident they are,
You
would they?
see it.
It would just be a normal, natural thing, wouldn't it, in their mind? So.
One of your posts on LinkedIn was very interesting where you said it's important to realize that that the appearance of success is far more important to a narcissist than actually being successful.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
Um, I'll give you an example. I've got a friend who's I know he's not diagnosed, but I know he's a narcissist, and he got with a girl who's about very good looking girl, about 15 years younger than him, and she's definitely got issues. And he was always like, "Oh, we're going to end it this, end it that," and he's still with her this day. He was complaining about her. Then he got married to her, and it's because I know it's because he wants to be seen with somebody who's younger, beautiful, 15 years younger, very good looking girl. He would rather be seen with her and have hell at home than be with someone who's maybe not quite as attractive, but doesn't make him look as good. So he's willing to pay the price of having a horrible life just to look good and parade around with her.
Nah, like the
Um,
guy, like some people I know of who will leverage their financial situation to the hilt to be in
yeah, yeah,
they can drive a fancy car, but they'll live in a proverbial shack.
exactly.
They'll live in a shack,
Yeah,
but
yeah, they'll go into debt over a car or even in debt over a house and be struggling. You know, the mortgage payments press them to the absolute limit just to show that they've got this nice house. Yeah, absolutely. That's
okay. Yeah, it's actually terrible because the thing is, it's one thing if you do it to yourself. If you want to inflict harm onto yourself, yeah, it's not great, but that's one thing. But if you use that to inflict harm on other people, like your spouse, for example, or you drag your family into your messy situations, because I've noticed that many narcissists are not very good with money. That they might be successful in all that stuff or know how to make money, but boy, do they know how to spend money too. It's almost it goes almost as quickly as it comes in.
yeah, they're very in the moment people. The vast majority of. I mean, also though, they're quite tight-fisted with other people. I've
Yeah,
noticed
yeah.
that they're not very giving, but unless they want to impress people. But they're just very much in the moment people where they'll get their wage in the month and they'll go, right, I've got $2,000 or whatever. Brilliant. Go and have a great time. A week later, it's all gone. And then they're crying for 3 weeks that they've no money. You know, so many of them do that. Yeah. I think just they're just very, just very in the moment and just very spontaneous with they don't plan ahead so much.
Yeah, so no wonder it's actually one of the potential dangers of running into financial trouble if
Well,
you
that's it. When
you're
you're
with someone
married, I
like
mean,
that.
yeah, I mean, during my marriage, yeah, we didn't have any savings. It was always every month to the wire. Every penny was spent, and that, I mean, I ended up suffering quite bad anxiety at the end of the relationship for kind of that reason, amongst many all the chaos that sort of builds up. And that's the thing with narcissists. It's the one and only kind of affliction that affects other people more than the sufferer themselves. Like somebody with depression, it's kind of their own demons, isn't it?
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
many other things. But with narcissistic personality disorder, it's actually they hurt other people rather than themselves. That's kind of the unique problem that because I mean with the things I write and the things I post, I sometimes get people saying, "Oh, you're demonizing narcissists and this, that, and the other." But it's just like, people need to know about it, because
Because
it's
they don't know
harmful for
enough.
others. That's the thing. It's not that you demonize, but it's like if you want other people to be safe, then people have to know about it.
Yeah, but John, let's also be honest about this. There's also a bit of a woke agenda in the world where certain people want to believe that everyone is good, everyone is kind, everyone's got only the best intentions, and if they're behaving badly, it's just because they hurt on the inside.
I
No,
have to admit,
no,
I used to kind of think like that maybe 10 years ago. Myself, there's good in everybody and this, that, and the other. But
no.
you're absolutely right. Some people, no, they are absolute trash, and that's just the way it is, isn't it?
Yeah, I actually drew this conclusion a while ago that it's far more difficult to be a good person than what it is to be a bad person. Far,
Yeah,
far, far more difficult. And the
I've
reason
heard something about that recently. Yeah, yeah,
And the reason is simple. Let's just look at this very logically. To be, it's so easy to default to your horrible nature. So easy to give in to that anger, to that jealousy, to that this or that or the other. But it takes more effort to step up and rise above a situation, to rise above yourself. It's the reason why there are far more losers in the world than what there are winners in the world, because it's so much easier to just give into your negative nature, to be complaining about everyone, to hate other people, to this and that and the other. It's far more. It requires far more effort to elevate yourself. Not even a comparison between the two.
yeah. Doing that sort of work on yourself. But that's the thing with the big problem with narcissists is because they kind of have grandiosity, kind of self delusions. They can't handle the fact that there could possibly be anything wrong with them. So any sort of fault they have, they don't do the work because they don't even admit they've got the fault in the first place. So you can't kind of improve on something that you don't know is a problem, can you?
So
So
true what you say there. Wow, you just reminded me of something. I remember with one of my exes, I'm not going to mention which one, just in case she's also watching this, which she might very well be doing, given that they like to keep tabs on their exes.
yeah,
That's actually quite a big thing. But one of our mutual friends actually said that she has absolutely no self-awareness. None, zero, nil.
yeah,
It's all about look at me, look at me, look at me. I'm so great. Making sure that she's as loud as possible in any given situation. Also making sure that uh, everyone has to notice her, because if they don't, then they freak out. It's actually quite bizarre to see someone with such an affliction, because I mean, and she's not the only one. I've encountered very other similar ones too. So concerned with the way they look. Good Lord, it's actually quite embarrassing. Oh, did you see how that person looked at me? Oh, did you see how they look? I wonder how I look with. Oh, for goodness sake, are you happy? Are you happy to be seen with me or not? It's as simple as that. If you can't handle it, find someone else. If you are happy, just shut up and enjoy it.
strange thing. I mean, I was in a 12-year relationship, so we was like 27 when we got together. So and we were both the same age. So I was maybe slightly more mature than her, but not a lot. There was not a lot in it. We were quite similar. And then I started growing up throughout the relationship, and she just stayed exactly the same. Still, by the time we finished relationship from when we was like 39, and she still just wanted to get drunk and stay up till 6 a.m. midweek, do
Yeah.
whatever she wanted. But it was like I'd gone way past that by then. I'd changed, grown, from 27 to 39. You do change quite a bit, but she didn't change one iota. And I think that's just down to they just don't self-reflect, don't feel they need to improve.
I
So
think they remain perpetual adolescents, especially in
yeah,
terms
exactly.
and especially in terms of their emotional development. It's almost as if they are, for example, 39 going on 13 or
Yeah.
15, maybe
Oh yeah.
maybe 16 if it's a real push. But
I
it's
mean, you can get some areas in their life where they can be quite mature. Like if they like their job, for example, they might be really good at that and mature and wise, and they can do that well. But then when it comes to their own affairs, they're just nowhere to be seen.
I think the jobs also comes into the fact that it gives them something to be successful and croak about, because anything that they
Mm.
can croak and crow about is something that they'll excel in and do well at, because it is
Yeah, yeah, the
always a case of
accolades.
look at me, love me
Yeah.
kind of mentality.
And there's the corporate ladder. I mean, they like hierarchies as well. They absolutely love hierarchies. That's why sort of like the police, the military are perfect for narcissists, because it's like, right, who's better than who, right? And everybody knows because all the ranks are there, aren't they,
Yeah.
on the badges, and who's hiring who? Yeah. So
Whom do I have to
the
suck up
corporate
to?
level,
Whom do I have to suck up to, and whom can I step on? That's pretty much what it
exactly.
boils down to.
Exactly. Yeah. So some do like the workplace, so they will rise to the occasion if they want to. But you can have them where, I mean, my dad was like that when I was growing up. He would talk about his job very passionately, and he worked in care, and he was way more caring with the people he cared with than he was with his own children. Put it that way.
I've seen that before, and
Yeah.
it's actually quite a remarkably common thing. It is, and the excuse that comes up is, well, they need me more than you do. Who are you to
Mm,
decide that? As a parent,
mm,
who the heck are you to decide that? Because what that also showed me is that you actually do care more about your external sources of supply, because you take your
yeah.
internal source of supply for granted. And that's one thing I notice narcs are constantly after. It's one of the reasons why their strategy is to move on from next person to the next, to the next, to the next, is because they're always in need of supply. It's like one of my friends
Yeah.
said to me that narcissists need supply the way that you and I need air, food, and water. Without supply, they literally wither away and die.
Problem comes that if you've been in a relationship with a narcissist for a long time, the supply is not it's not like nice fresh supply. It's
Like a
become
drug almost.
stale to them. And so if you're in a 12-year relationship, they're not getting the supply from you that they were getting from the beginning when it was all new and exciting, which is
Um,
often why they look for somebody else, because that new exciting person can give them 10 times the supply you can give them because they know you like them. That ship's sailed in their mind. So that's why a lot of them do cheat. It's not necessarily that they're sex addicts or anything like that. They just get more supply of someone new, which makes relationships, long-term relationships, really hard for them.
wow. I didn't even quite consider that, but yeah, you are right. It makes
Yeah,
perfect sense that the
yeah,
supply almost becomes like a drug. It's a new fix that you need to
yeah,
get.
yeah. So it's like they're taking the same drug all the time for years. They get bored of it. So the supply levels are getting lower. So then they need to start seeing friends more or whatever to try and get the supplies up because they're not getting enough at home anymore, and affairs and this, that, and the other. Yeah.
Can it be treated, narcissism? I mean, is there a treatment for it to
But they say a lot of talking therapies can help, but I don't think it can ever be cured. I think because a lot of your personality is sort of settled by about the age of 7, I think. Um, so once you've kind of gone into adulthood, you can sort of prop up their sort of personality and find coping strategies, but it's always kind of there underlying. I mean, there's some people I follow on TikTok that are diagnosed narcissists, and they've talked about their struggles, and some of them have been in therapy 7, 8 years, and they still say, they say they're a lot better than they were, but they still slip up from time to time and go back into their old ways of thinking.
But
And
that's
if they were to stop therapy,
a level of
they would just
self-awareness. That's a level of self-awareness you wouldn't normally expect from a narcissist.
no.
Most of the time, they wouldn't give a damn about how they affect you.
Yeah, I mean, there's a great guy called Lee Hammock that I watch sometimes on TikTok, and he's very self-aware. There's another guy, I've forgotten his name. He always wears. Oh, God, hold on, just 1 second. I thought I'd turned the volume down on that actually. Yeah, what was I saying?
You were
Oh
talking
yeah,
about
yeah,
Hannah.
the
I
self-aware. Yeah, yeah, it's quite rare, the self-aware narcissist, but there are a few about. There's a Sam Vaknin as well. He does like YouTube. He's a self-aware narcissist. But yeah, but by and large, 99% of the time that they've no awareness, they've no insight into what they do. But
There's also an interesting narcissistic type called the communal one, where they love to be the ones who fight for justice. Many activists are apparently
oh
communal.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So rights and righteousness and so on. But meanwhile, don't do, so in other words, one of their afflictions is they expect you to treat them in a righteous and just way, but they can treat you however the hell they want. Just don't you dare treat them in an unjust way. Then they throw their toys out very quickly.
Yeah, yeah, the virtue signals. I mean, you look at what's happened. I mean, there was a spell a few years ago in the news about all the kind of abuse in religious institutions, we'll put it like that. Um, Things like the church, charities, left-wing politics, yeah, activists. I mean, we've got all these Just Stop Oil people now in Britain. I don't know if you've seen that.
Oh, I've
That
seen
will
them. They're so annoying. I'll just say that
they,
openly. They are beyond annoying. Very narcissistic
they
behavior.
just sit in the road, stopping the traffic while all the cars are there sat there idling, bursting more fumes into the air.
Yeah. No,
And
now to anyone wondering, that is narcissistic behavior. Top-notch narcissistic
I mean,
behavior.
I'm not saying all of them are narcissists because they're probably not, but
No, no,
there's
but the
definitely a lot of
behavior.
narcissism running amok in that one. Yeah, because it's all like, look at me, we're sat here, we're saving the world, and it's like you just sat on a road, you're not saving the world.
Oh, no, no, absolutely. And by the way, I just want to clarify, I don't want to say all of them are full-blown narcissists. I'm just saying that the behavior that they are exhibiting
Mm.
by
And
stopping
I
other
will
people.
wager that it's being organized by
Yeah,
narcissists.
yeah. And the fact
Because
that,
they'll be the ones going, look at that, I'm disrupting all this traffic. I'm getting all my little minions to go and disrupt all this traffic because I can. And that's how it feels to me. I mean, I might be wrong on that one, but
no,
it's
I
certainly how
think
it feels to me.
I think you're quite right, though. And I reckon that's one of the reasons why people still vote for politicians, because many politicians are very good narcissists, because
Mm.
they know how to draw from other people's energy, because it's supply, going on stage and talking and people loving you and
Oh,
all.
politics is absolutely perfect for a narcissist.
Yeah.
It has all the ingredients, doesn't it? It's power, money,
Mm.
status, like you say, being in the spotlight. The- I mean, there's no way it's not going to attract him, is it? Really, it's absolutely perfectly geared up for him.
Absolutely, and I mean we've seen some very prominent ones in the UK, well, all over the world. Let's just be honest. I mean, it's not just a UK and US thing. It's a very global thing. Now,
Yeah.
my theory behind that, and as I say that, I feel like stopping myself too, because as the old saying goes, if you want to know what someone else is thinking, don't infect them with your thinking. But I'm curious to know what you think it is about people in general who go for narcissists. Why are people so attracted to them? Why are people so eager to follow them, to them, believe in them, for that matter?
They're usually quite charismatic. They're manipulative. They know how to say the right things to sort of engage your emotions and how to get you angry about us. I mean, that's a big one. If you can get somebody angry about something and say, "I have the solution," um, their day-to-day life. They manipulate people all the time, and that's basically what a politician does, isn't it? They're kind of manipulating people's emotions and thoughts and this, that, and the other. And and like you said, they like the sound of their own voice as well. So they're usually quite good speakers. So and they will promise things, whether they can deliver it or not. Somebody more empathetic and conscientious wouldn't promise the earth because they'd think, well, I don't know whether I can deliver that. A narcissist will say, we're going to build a great big massive wall and then we're going to do it and get somebody else to pay for it. Whether he just words to him was somebody who wasn't a narcissist would be saying, well, I can't say that because it's not true. And unfortunately, people do believe these big, grandiose statements.
Do you think, well, to build onto what you just said there, that the more boldly you say something and the more brash and daring you come across, even if it's a massive lie, that the more people will believe it?
Yeah, it seems to be, say it with gusto. Yeah, I mean it always gets to this in the end, gets to Nazi Germany, doesn't it? But I mean, the Nazis were absolute masters of that, weren't they? Of promising the earth and saying, we are going to make this country strong. We're gonna give you this. We're going to give you that. We're going to give you that.
Find a
And
common
basically,
enemy.
everybody bought it. Yeah,
Yeah.
or find or create an enemy. Yeah, and then fight against it. Yeah.
No, John, I think we could talk about this for hours and hours on end, because the topic is just so incredibly broad. 1 hour or so is just not long enough to fully get into it. But I'm curious to know, and I think viewers would also be interested to know, what can we do to protect ourselves against narcissists? What are the
Mhm.
preventative tactics? If you find yourself in a relationship with a narcissist, how can you protect yourself? And leaving one can also be challenging. So in those three
Mhm.
categories, what advice can you give people on how to deal with those?
Well, first for letting people in your life is be very careful who you let in your life and take your time. Narcissists will try and rush into your life. So if it was a romantic relationship, for example, they want you to be living with them, married to them, and having children within 3 months,
Hmm.
um, because then they don't have to love bomb you and win you over for as long. They want to lock you in as quick as possible. And with platonic friendships, the same. They want to be. They'll try and see you every night of the week and ingrain themselves into your life. So I would say take it very slow with people and just watch. Even if they're nice at the beginning, it doesn't. I mean, they might be nice, great, but not necessarily things will stay that way. So take it really slowly and just be very slow about letting people into your life, slow and gradual,
You
because a
said a word
narcissist
there.
will try and build.
You said something
Sorry?
interesting there called love bombing. Now,
Oh
I
yeah.
know many people don't really know what it is. Do you mind just giving a short description of what love bombing is and what it entails and all that, and how to
Yeah,
identify?
sure. Yeah, at the beginning of relationships, narcissists, I mean, we all do it. We all want to make a good
Yeah,
impression
yeah,
and
yeah.
look our best. But a narcissist will take this to the absolute extreme, and that they will they will they will be so kind, considerate. Everything will be about you. They will pick up on things they know you like, and they happen to like the same things. They'll copy off the things you like. Pretend, they'll do all the things you want to do with them. And then once you're sort of married, engaged, living with them, or just you've fallen for them and they sense it, that's when eventually they'll drop the love bombing, and then the narcissistic behaviors will come to the surface. So if you can not get married, have children within the first sort of 3 to 6 months, that seems to be the kind of amount of time frame. 3 to 6 months is when the narcissist starts showing their true colors. So
Three
in
to
any
six
sort of
months.
relationship,
Okay.
that's a rough rule of thumb, yeah. So
Hmm.
if you sort of keep them a bit arm's length for that amount of time, you should start spotting little signs of, because they, even though they pretend to be nice, they do make sort of there's little mistakes they make.
Everyone does that because your patterns will eventually reveal themselves. Because
Exactly, yeah.
I was saying that the other day that as corny as this may sound, we are all predictable in our own ways because we crave predictability in our own lives on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah. Um, I'm not sure where you're going with that one, with the
No. When I say predictability, I mean like we all have predictable patterns. So the reason why I'm saying we're all predictable in our own ways is that we crave stability, and what comes with stability is predictability. You want to have a reasonable idea of how the day is going to go, so your patterns will match your personality. So if you are a certain way, then eventually your patterns will become predictable. Your nasty side will start coming out as soon as you start feeling
right with you.
and all that.
Yeah. That's the thing. They can be caught on a moment. It takes a lot of energy to pretend to be someone you're not.
Hmm.
A lot, and if you're spending a lot of time with someone, you're gonna make the odd mistake here, and it's just inevitable, isn't it? That your true self is, and this is what you watch out for, is that you can spot that. I mean, one big clue that a lot of people spot with narcissists in the early days is if they go for a meal with them and they're treating you like royalty and still love bombing you, and then the waiter comes and they just sort of shoo them away because that waiter's not important to them. In their mind, are beneath them because it's like, I'm paying you. So it's like a big clue is like, look how they treat waiting staff when you're on your dates with them, and see if they treat them
I've
well.
often said that even when I used to go on dates a lot, I would also always watch how they treated the waiting staff. It's a big thing for me to see how they treat them, because if I was in that position, you would have treated me the same way. That's how
Mm.
that's how
And
I would.
how they treat anybody that kind of doesn't have something they need or that they deem is beneath them, whether it's the false man or whatever. Um, just look at how they treat, or how they treat their ex as well. If you hear them on the phone, if they have children with them, and they're sort of screaming at them, it's like, one day you could be that ex, couldn't you?
Yeah, absolutely. The second part, the other part of the question that I asked earlier, because we diverged a bit into the whole love bombing thing, which was essential to discuss, is when you're in a relationship with a narcissist and you want to get out of a relationship with a narcissist, what are your pieces of
Mm.
advice over there for people to navigate that? Because that's a whirlwind of notes.
It is, yeah. Well, if you don't have children with them, and this is going to sound a little bit cruel, and it is a little bit cruel because you wouldn't treat somebody who's neurotypical like this, but I would say don't even tell them you're leaving. Just leave, disappear, and don't tell them where you're going. Complete no contact and just disappear as best you can. Is usually the best policy, because if they want you back, they will stalk you. They will wait for you outside work. They will go to your house. They'll drive past at 3 in the morning. I know loads of people that have had these sort of problems. So it's like, if you can get out and just disappear, I would say, block them on all social media, block the phone number, and just disappear. But obviously, if you have children with them, you can't do that. Then it becomes a lot more difficult.
Oh no, of course, it definitely does. And yeah, I'm just thinking that I'm lucky that I also don't have children, so it was easy for
Yeah.
me to leave.
I
But
mean, same here. I wasn't in that position around children, but I have had people sort of email me about and the thing is that the narcissist knows they've got access to you because they can just say, "I want to see my children." So you have to let them see the children. So the only kind of choice you've got there is, I don't know if you've heard of the grey rock method.
yes, I'm very familiar with
Yeah,
it.
yeah. So it's like the grey rock is where you just kind of treat them almost like you're a professional at work. You're pleasant to them. You don't rise to the provocations because they will try and provoke you. You just kind of deal with them, right? Yeah, here's the children. Come back at 3 or whatever, and just try and. It's not easy to do, but they will try and get you to lose your temper. They will try and annoy you and wind you up. They'll turn up late and this, that, and the other, just to push your buttons. So it's like, just try and stay as calm and collected as you possibly can. That's the best thing you can do. And then they get bored because they're not getting any drama from you. If you just kind of try and keep it professional, don't fight them, you'll find that they probably disappear and don't bother with their children after a while because they're not getting what they really want, because they don't really care about seeing the children. They're just using them to get to you.
Yeah, good heavens. I mean, it's almost like a horror movie script. If you,
I mean, it can ruin people. I've seen it. It ruins people's lives because somebody gets with a narcissist from a young age, has children, and it's like now they're entangled with that narcissist for the rest of their lives, effectively, because, or at least for the next sort of 18 years.
yeah,
And the narcissist knows that. That's why they do it. They want you to get married, have children. Then they know they have access to you for the rest of their life, and it's likely you're not the only person they have access like that to. Some narcissists will have many children with many different partners, and then they can just, when they're bored, they can just decide, I want to see my children, and get access to that person whenever they want.
yeah. John, I think that's a pretty good note on which to leave it off at, because we because we definitely discussed quite a lot about it, though. We went into solutions, we went into identifying problems, and so on and so forth. And I hope that that anyone watching this, if you're in a relationship with a narcissist, that John's advice over here will be of immense help to you, and that you can just rid yourself of that special place in hell that you are currently in, because we can relate. It's not fun to be in a situation like that. So I just want to say thanks a lot, John. You've really done a public service over here by helping out,
Thanks.
sharing your
And
knowledge.
it helps as well. What helps a lot of people is just knowing that other people are in the same boat. Because when you're in the thick of it, as you probably know, you just feel like you're the only person that's going through this strange, unique situation. And once you reach out, you realize there's many other people the same. It is kind of comforting just to know you're not on your own.
I agree with you. Thanks so much, John. And I would actually like to have a follow-up on this at some point. I think there
Yeah,
are
brilliant. Yeah, I'd love
that
to.
we
Yeah,
didn't get
yeah,
to
definitely.
this time. So let's end it off over there, and cheers, everyone. Thanks for watching.
Thank you for listening to the Black Heart Red Spade podcast. For more information, please visit our website at www.blackheartredspade.com or follow us on Twitter at BHeartRSpade.